Wonderful day. It is another glorious day here in Western Arizona, out by Lake Havasu. We're getting near 100 today. Hopefully it'll stay a little cooler, but we are excited to visit with you. Again, this is Caleb, and we have a show coming up tomorrow, and I wanted to turn our hearts towards the future, because in the future we have hope. In the future we have consideration, and we have power, and we have that empowerment to invest ourselves in the future of this nation. And so I want to turn our hearts towards that hopeful moment of realizing our future. And to that end, I've written a piece today, and I'd like to share that with you if you briefly indulge me as I pull that up. I'm reminded of some of these songs that we sing that are so hopeful, in the past. And just, talking of a glorious new day, a day that's coming, a day to which we might lend our credibility, to which we might lend our power and authority and good conscience, a day in which we find that we've actually not only recovered, but we've restored and we've changed and we've provided for a future that has always been indefinite in its nature, but through proper planning and through consideration and prayer, we can build something that is difficult to diminish. And so that's what I want to bring about here. Bear with me as I begin to read this, whatever you call it, monologue or piece that I've written. I thank you so much. For me, it's difficult not to be joyous, and so I can get that stern face on. I can get that relative conscience that I'm targeted and focused and precise. But look, folks, I'm filled with the heart of joy and anticipation of a day that's coming our way. A day when I will not grow old, will not wither, will not fade away. I'll be given an incorruptible body, and we will be free of sin. And that day is coming, folks. And that's what I want us to look forward to, is the hope that is involved with a relationship with the Lord. The duration of events led us to ponder the expedient or possible routes toward recovery of this sovereign nation. Obstacles, obstreperous or sanguine, demanded our guided focus upon the immediacy of problems at hand, prohibitive of reconstructive contemplation. The concept or realization of battling in the heavenly realms, fighting with angels and such, tends to elevate and captures one entire perspective. As we marshaled forward, we felt helpless at times, not understanding that the hope and prayers we offered were in fact the mechanisms through which these battles are won. As time progressed, we matured to a posture of digging for the revelations designed to lead us to the buried or at least concealed truth stacked indiscriminately within the piles and piles of related or unnecessary documents. Time spent filtering for the kernels of truth concentrated our collective efforts upon collecting, sifting, coalescing, related data to compile the instruments through which discernment of truth became probable, then likely, and then possible. For months we waited, sometimes absent patience for something indicative of positive result, grasping upon sometimes unrelated concepts or occurrences to bolster our confidence that the tide had indeed turned. The wicked remained wicked and appeared uninhibited on their march toward the eventual dissolution of this nation. We swallowed guilt with a dose of reality as repeated investigations uncovered the clarity and accuracy of the foul intent and strategy. Time upon time, we thought we saw the sun poking itself through the dark clouds of unstoppable assault against the soldiers of our deliverance. But as is in anything godly, it was inevitably in his timing, requiring recommittal, acknowledgement, and adjustment to expectation. The frailty of our learning so complete, when making these adaptations, we often took the pendulum too far the opposite direction in recalculation, producing a laser focus too precise for the work yet performed. Again, we had to step away from procedure to modify our judgment, this time learning the balance necessary between a hopeful future and the persistent patience required to survive each day. At home with our happenstance, we found comfort in the slow, steady revealing as each leaf of growth slowly but surely poked its head free to unfurl into reality. After so many years and months of entropy, this minute but relentless growth began to feed our motivation, and efforts were doubled, then tripled, in attempt to find the shortcut through the maze. Alas, no shortcuts existed, and that was frankly the vital hope and internal strength of champion planning. Something had changed. The onslaught of enemy attacks apparently faltered or perhaps ran low of fuel, forcing a slowing and a lane change. What once was perpetual now was intermittent, unsteady, and lacking the fortitude and effect of previous charges. Either they were waiting, recalculating, and adapting, or the slow, steady march of our efforts to unseal, reveal, and bring to account their evil schemes was in fact stealing wind from the sails of their pirate vessel. Could it be that their arrogance and bluster were just attempts to muster wind to cloth? Yes, they indeed had fallen frail in the doldrums of limited option. They squandered and wandered and traveled the same circle, tacking and retracking, looking for the breeze to go upon. As the legal precedents mounted toward their eventual demise, they returned to the libel and pejorative slandering everyone and everything they believed permissive of their removal. With arms failing, veins bulging, their unjustified rage unmasked them for the entire public to see, the ravenous wolves of truth. This gave more strength to the present argument than any one step taken on our behalf. Their lies no longer were believed. No matter what would follow, they had lost any credibility and began to feel the all-seeing eye of the people turn in their direction, winnowing, sifting, demanding reason, truth, and clarity. They were captured in their own creation, in their own devices. A campaign so false in nature that it could not withstand public viewing. Their numbers began to fade as rats ran down the lines, hoping to make sure or threw themselves upon the mercy of passing frigates, declaring their desire to turn evidence against their former kin. Traitors, performing the same betrayal upon their own with which they had so deftly attempted the poisoning of this nation. Certainly the worst of the bunch, the planners, true servants of the fallen, and landowners within empire, must remain with the ship as it begins to take on water. But the damage has been done. The vessel of the brigands' efforts would eventually capsize and be gone into the depths within the seas of justice. Rejoice, we heard among the brethren, as one by one the enemies surrendered or were brought to the reality of their evil and placed eventually under arrest. Within our musings and joyous expository songs, we had briefly forgotten the sour stomachs and nights not remembered, and the patient hearts born of a will to see righteousness served. Had the war been won? Decidedly not, but the troops must have victory to build courage for further campaign. So rejoicing and merriment continued, with understanding of its brevity. In song, laughter, and slapping shoulders, the righteous reflected on the nation they had once owned, then lost, and now apparently would win again. A joyous moment of quenched fears, happy tears, and diminished worry, they breathed freedom's gift. What now was the question upon the minds of many? How to proceed in the reassembly of something so precious that we cannot again withstand its loss. Oh, we had become so relentless in our pursuit to retain this previous haven of liberty that we hadn't dedicated the necessary moments of reflection upon its eventual return. What now? All turned and looked quizzically upon their neighbor for clue, and finding no sapient evidence of mapping, began chattering in returned concern. Must I remain so fickle in my perceptions that hope refused to shine upon the moments between darkness and the dawn? Of course, we would maintain we would maintain it, but now came the requirement for answers to a brand new set of interrogatives. How do we revise our country and its founding documents to prohibit further assault or nefarious infiltration? How do we protect the amendments of our Constitution from delivering into the hand of corporate ventures the very power belonging to people alone? How do we stop government from its inevitable growth to the point where it becomes the ruler and we the serfs in servitude? What then of apparent treason and sedition of our representatives? How would we prohibit this awful thing from ever happening again, and then install checkpoint upon checkpoint and add benchmark to ascertain its continued health and purity of purpose? Now the future became the heavy thing weighing upon my mind. No longer had the past maintained concern. Future concerns are easier to stomach than ill-travailed past. For hope is inherent in future's revelation, as we look forward to a day only imagined in our waking. Now we understand the importance of our diligent participation in the governance of a country that demands the people's hand upon the helm of its creation and continued path past prosperity. We are responsible for the proper accounting of this nation's business, not simply bystanders, but responsible members of the board of culpability. How many times will God come to our aid in restoration of a country we neither protected nor valued enough to maintain its righteous focus? What then of our plans of reconstruction, reshaping, and relaunch upon tomorrow? What of the moral shaping of a nation without the machinations and manipulations of social engineering? How to develop a country with such high standing and expectation that its foundation remains the greatest defense against further infiltration? These are the questions which begin to posit upon curiosity's housing. We know where we have been and see ourselves standing at the doorway of potential for a glorious national future. Where then shall we go from here? What lays ahead for America? I'm so glad to be the one to ask. May God's voice and his hand guide our planning and reconstruction, that we once again return the roots of wisdom found in his provision and guidance. May we once again dedicate ourselves to Almighty God, and in so doing solidify a future that was almost lost to past. Thank you, folks. I greatly appreciate, as always, the opportunity to share my opinions, and I welcome and respect yours as well. I thank you for participating in all of our efforts to take this country back and point it towards a glorious future. I love you, and I praise the Lord for giving me the opportunity to do so in this life. Loving him with all my heart, mind, and soul and strength like I love no other, and loving you the way that I would want to be loved. And that's my job. And so if any of you has any problems or any needs that for which I might pray or offer encouragement or consolation, please consider me at your service. I love you, and I thank you for the opportunity to share with you today. And I ask that the Lord bless your every deed and every word this week, and make you powerful witnesses for the glory of God. Thank you so much. Wonderful day.